Yeah.
Talking Tangos with AngelAngieKC and WeHoScott, and we are talking week 9, which they called Showstoppers week. I don't know how long it took me to figure out what the hell the theme was this week.
I really didn't figure it out coming through. I'm glad you mentioned it. I remember they had mentioned the week before it was Showstoppers, so
yeah,
it's kind of vague,
like,
but
which is fine. I would have preferred no theme.
Right.
You know, would have been fine, but
well, we're at this
whatever.
point now. It's hard to believe we're in the home stretch. There's what, two more weeks? And,
yeah, Thanksgiving week is the big finale. So.
Right. So I'm thinking you're right. Couldn't they just do straight up the dance, tangos, pasos, like classic? Pick the best music you think to use for it. And I get hot and cold in it. I love a tango to a traditional tango, but when they pick something a little more contemporary that works, that's fun. But yeah, I at this point, it's like the themes were fun, but I don't think we need them.
And now we just need good dancing.
Right.
So anyway, You'll have to forgive both of us. We're doing this on the fly here, and my voice may leave. And sorry for missing last week, but my Royals won the World Series, and I was nuts.
And I have 7,000 friends that I follow on Twitter and a lot on Facebook, and my feeds were a sea of blue.
Yeah. Well, between the Mets and the Royals, because it was, you've got New York people and all that who were devastated, which, I'm so sorry.
In the playoffs, the Dodgers were like in that for a nanosecond, so that added to it. They're blue.
Yeah. Okay, so we will start right in with this week, and started right off with, drama. Tamar had to leave in the midst of dress rehearsal. We don't know if she's going to make it.
And this whole, we don't know, and we don't know if she'll come back. We haven't heard. We don't know. They know. They know more than they. You know what? It kind of annoyed me that they took her, which turned out to be a serious condition, and really, and she signed up for it. I don't feel bad for her. I feel bad for us, the viewers, that were constantly subjected to that kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Manipulation, exploitation. They really exploited it in kind of a crappy way.
Well, of course they exploited it. It's reality TV, and they, they're all about ratings, but they had to have known a little more what was going on. There's way too much flipping money involved.
Right.
In that program for them not to have had somebody with her or somebody at that hospital.
But anyway, so that was
what's going on. So anyway, so we didn't get a pro number, which was okay because the poor people had to learn enough, and everybody was off everywhere. The couples were all off doing
a lot of New York flights going on there.
Yeah.
Tips and this and that and Vegas.
Yeah. So couple number 1, first off of the night, was Alek and Lindsay doing a salsa, which is salsa.
The garbage truck is coming by right now.
Okay. Salsa, and I was thinking, oh, Alek and salsa, he's not the best, the lightest on his feet, the quickest. But the whole waxing thing.
Right.
They spent so much time on the waxing thing. And what I noted after the next dance, which was Alexa and Mark, was that Alek made this kind of offhand remark about not being really, comfortable with his body being treated.
Right.
And they totally skipped over that and didn't ever even come back to it, paid no mind to it, but spent Alexa's entire package was about, the struggle that she had with basically body shaming.
Yeah.
As a child. So I was just kind of like, oh, it's kind of typical. They talk about, I'm definitely all for women's rights and all that.
It's interesting. The men aren't allowed to have that as a discussion, but the women, it has to be totally, it's interesting.
Yeah. Like I said, I let it go right past me until after Alexa's number. And then I was like, Alex kind of had that same, and he was very kind of quiet about it, and they didn't push on it, but there are a lot more men out there who have body image issues than anybody would know.
Not only that, what they blew past is what I personally think is one of Alex's allures, charms, is that he's a very attractive young man. He keeps himself in good shape. He's adorable. I think he's good looking. He's well groomed. He's an average Joe, whatever. That's what people love about him. And to hear a guy who clearly he works out, he's got a good body. They shaved him down. He's defined. He's maybe not quite as cut as Carlos, but Carlos is kind of insane with that. He's chiseled.
Well, and he compared himself to Noah last season.
Right.
Absolutely ridiculously cut and ripped.
Exactly.
But that is his job. He's a trainer, so
good-looking guy for whatever, and for someone not to have image, and be modest, I think a lot of voters and a lot of women would find that extremely attractive rather than a guy strutting himself out like a popinjay, you know?
Yeah.
So they completely brush over that, and it doesn't serve him well, which is funny because his dancing, I really think he has plateaued. As we get into what they did, he did something that a lot of older male contestants do when they really can't move anymore. And we saw it certainly with, who's on, what's his name? Gary Busey. They kind of stand there and the women do all the twirling around them, especially in that dance. They did, was it a cha-cha? What did they do?
They did a salsa.
Salsa, okay. So salsas and cha-chas, very often they let the guy get away with kind of standing and moving the arms, you know, twirling like a marionette, and the women are doing all the stuff around them. And I felt Alek is better than that by now, and I really don't think he got into it and put the athleticism in, and they mentioned the hips. They weren't moving. If he could like swing those hips and get that little like, you know, caramba going on in there, I think it would have helped. But he just sort of stood there like a lump. And, you know, what did they get? Triple eights on that?
Triple eights, yeah.
I was even thinking if someone gave him a 7, I wouldn't complain. But that's why they didn't get 9s and 10s. I think he really didn't put in. I think he's capable of doing more. I mean,
yeah, but I think what's happening with him is that we're to the point where the fact that he is a complete non-dancer, non-performer, having to do 2 dances and having that travel involved, right, and all that other distraction stuff going on around him kind of showed in the fact that maybe Lindsay couldn't do a whole lot of more intricate, complicated choreography with him because he had to learn 2 dances and travel to New York and get on a ship
and we have
go out to sea.
We have to be fair. You know, Nick, who's we'll get to him. But I mean, as a boy band member, he has moves. He has stage. He's comfortable on the stage. He's, you know what I mean? There's such an advantage that someone like him, or even Carlos and Alexa, I mean, there's such a big advantage that people who do sort of like performy, dancey, even though they're not professional dancers, they've been on the stage, and it is hard for these average
and they're used to working under pressure, having to memorize stuff. I mean, even though Nick isn't a ballroom dancer. Right. The boy band stuff, he's having to learn choreography quick. He's
absolutely
he's disciplined in rehearsals. You know, he knows how to, has little tricks for remembering stuff. I mean, they never talk about that, but when you do that stuff, you develop ways to be able to cope and to work at a very rushed pace as far as short time and having to get stuff down and have it look, you know, perfect. Or not perfect, but really good, excuse me. So anyway.
And all of that, when we get to her, I'll just give a preview, is a reason why I think Bindi is amazing.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get there. So couple number 2, Alexa and Mark doing a contemporary. Mm-hmm. And her whole story was the fact that Mark wanted to do something about the blocks we put in for ourselves and how we go about living in our heads and trying to get out of our heads and pushing past that. And so she shared the fact that she was bulimic for a number of years after having been told as a child actor that she was too fat.
Right.
Which I was just kind of like, oh, that's just, it's, ugh. If I'd been her mother, I would have been nuts if I had found that out.
Yeah.
So they had, I kind of said the dance was like, it was a fight, but because they had Mark all in black, it more represented Alexa's internal struggles and battles and fight to try and break free of the hold of those mental blocks and images she has of herself. So that was my comment. And that, you know, I thought the choreography was great. I thought,
I loved it.
Mark was incredibly clever as far as staging and all of that. So it was just, I
thought they did wonderfully. I thought their 10s were well deserved. You know, contemporary is a funny thing. It's not like a ballroom dance where you have certain things you can judge, certain things that you have to do that you could take points on and off for. It is what it is. So for me, just as a layperson watching it, not really knowing a lot of, I only know what I've learned watching a lot of these shows. It just hit me as, that was a good dance. I mean, you know, that was.
Yeah. Contemporary, I think, needs to be emotional. It needs to speak to you. It needs to connect with you. And if it does that, then it's a successful contemporary.
Right.
So it totally did.
Yeah.
Then we move on to couple 3, which was Carlos and Witney doing an Argentine tango to a Justin Bieber song. I was just like, as soon as I heard it was a Justin Bieber song, I thought,
right then and there, you're distracted. Yeah.
And I have WTF ? In my notes.
Yeah.
And then I said, ouch, because of the rehearsal package.
Right.
She nailed him a couple of times really nicely. Yeah. I did say Witney looked stunning. I loved that dress and the way they had her hair. She was gorgeous looking.
Knockout anyway, yeah.
But I said, I hate the door stuff. Just friggin' dance.
Right.
I hated that lift. I thought that lift and that spin was awkward looking as far as her legs wrapped around his neck. And then I'm not a fan of those kind of lifts. And I said, terrible song for an Argentine tango.
Well, I was just going to say, I really like tangos to be done to tangos. I mean, there are some exceptions, but I'm a little bit traditionalist with that. I just think they work. I think the music of a tango is just it's so specific. Especially
Argentine tango is supposed to be all about, I mean, it was based on, working girl and the man that she's trying to lure in and that whole kind of give take. And
right.
I mean, you should at least have some of that passion and that.
And you said the word
that drama.
I wrote down lacked a little of the passion needed for that dance. And I think Carrie Ann and Julianne kind of mentioned that too.
Yeah.
And I also wrote down that I think Carlos seemed to be aware of his steps. It just seemed to be, it wasn't flowing as naturally as it could, when you're concentrating on it. It seemed to be that he was concentrating on what he was doing.
Yeah, I wasn't wild about the choreography, and I don't know. I did not love it. They did end up with all 9s, though. So I was kind of like,
I thought an 8 in there would have been fine.
Yeah, if Lynn had been there with an Argentine tango, I think we would have gotten, a 7 or an 8 because of all of the non-tango, all the non,
absolutely
style stuff at the beginning and back and forth with the door. I was just like, get the door out of the way. I'm tired of the door.
Too much messing about.
Yeah, exactly. And then, couple number 4 is Bindi and Derek.
Wow.
Viennese Waltz. And they danced. That song was actually, I don't know if people actually heard it, but the song was by Mark Ballas's girlfriend.
Right, I saw that.
So, and it's a gorgeous song.
I wrote down Bindi blows my mind, package and dance. Both the back, and she just, I don't know. I think I tweeted, I love her. I think I tweeted.
Yeah, I did see that.
And a million people saw the hashtag and retweeted. I was laughing. It kept coming in all night. Yeah. But I don't know. I said it 4 or 5 weeks. I think it was 4 weeks ago. I said, I think she's going to win. And I still think it. She has so won over the voters. She, to me, is a total package now. She, it was in the beginning, it was sort of like, oh yeah, her dad, we all kind of knew him and how sad she lost. So, she piqued our interest, but she's such a good actress and she's such a good dancer and she's such an amazing person and she's so positive and she works so hard. She hits everything. She's everything what you want to vote for, in my opinion. And I just think she's a total package for this show. So watch out. I'm sure it'll be down to her and one other. I should think she'll be in the final. It'll be.
Oh. Yeah, absolutely. She's going to be in the final. I think it's going to be her and Nick as the final 2 couples.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I.
And I said beautiful. I kind of loved the blindfold, and I thought Derek was going to miss that leap and catch. I mean, it almost looked. I was just kind of like, woo, when they did that. But I mean, it was it was beautiful, and they ended up with all 10s for a 30.
And I don't know how much Derek was putting on in the package. In my business, it's writer's block. He's sort of got choreographer's block there. And he's done that in the past. But I think what we kind of loved about Bindi was instead of her just sort of sulking or not knowing what to do, she encouraged him. It's just the partnership is great. I just love, and then by the end of it, I'm thinking, Derek pulled it off. Another great choreography.
Exactly. And my note after they danced was that everybody had a tough week package.
Right.
When you go back and look at it, everybody had this tough week.
Right. No one
emotionally or choreography or they're sick or because even Witney was having choreography issues with their Argentine tango. They showed that. So it absolutely depends on what the producers choose to pull out of all that footage and focus on.
Right.
So then we went to couple number 5, Tamar and Val with a contemporary.
Right.
My first thought was, and Tamar was not there. Everybody knows she wasn't there. She didn't make it back. I was a little annoyed about the fact that nobody knew where she was, that she left without letting anybody know.
And that's what I was saying.
That's unprofessional.
When we started just now, I'm not sure I buy it. I just think this was like a dramatic whatever. I don't buy it. We don't know.
I can't. They knew she was gone because she wasn't there for the dress rehearsal for her duet dance.
And Tom, the way he was talking about it throughout, there was almost like not lighthearted, but there was not even a serious tone. It was like, where's Tamar? I don't know. It was weird. It was weird.
I don't know.
First of all, can I just say, I was distracted for the first minute of it that it wasn't David's Wicked Game.
Yeah.
It wasn't David Cook's Wicked Game. It wasn't Chris Allen's Wicked. Oh, it was
Chris Isaac.
And it wasn't Chris Isaac's, right? The original. So I'm thinking, like, if it's not going to be Chris Isaac's, put David's on. It's a new album.
Yeah, but my first note was that it was a really similar concept to the duet between Candace and Charlie. Candace Bure and Charlie White back in season 18 when they did those two dances together. They kind of had that whole, you know, dysfunctional relationship, them splitting off, meeting up with another couple or another, you know, person, that partnership couple forming and coming off. So I was like, oh, that's a little copycat, but, you know, that never happens. And then after they were done, I was just kind of like, yeah, that was definitely, that wasn't even a good dress rehearsal.
All right, here's
because a dress rehearsals that I have done, you know, eons ago, they were full out because you wanted to see your timing, you wanted to see, you know, what it took to get through it. And I could understand she is one of those who might pull back a little bit, but that was a
You're not supposed to, because I've been at the SNL dress rehearsal, which I don't know if they still do it, but they always had a 5 or 6 o'clock full dress rehearsal with an audience that they might tape, but it doesn't go out over the air live. And
well, exactly. I think it's also a backup.
It's the whole show.
It's a backup in case something terrible happens as far as broadcasting live TV, because something can always happen with live television.
So you've got to go for it as if it's really happening. I wrote down that I don't like the rule. I think it's a bad luck of the draw. It's really unfortunate, but it happens. It happens in the sports world. You don't get a chance to come back and win the Super Bowl or the World Series if you're out sick during the game. And, you know, maybe if it was one of my favorite dancers and I was thinking, you know, was going to win and then this happened, I would feel differently, maybe because I'm not a huge fan of hers. But I just don't like the rule. I think maybe she should have been, you can't make it. We can't judge on a dress rehearsal.
Except they've done it in the past.
They have.
Because they've done it when people get injured during the show, because when Amy Purdy got hurt,
I remember
back in season 18, she popped that rib out during the actual live show.
Might be my bias that, you know, I don't know. It just, but you're right. You know, maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe she should have just given her all during the dress rehearsal. And then maybe she would have blown our minds and she would have gotten 9s. And I don't know. It's just kind of, it's a weird thing.
I don't know. I mean, I just felt like Val was doing a lot of hemming and hawing and excusing when he was talking before the judges gave their scores. But I did say it did look like she was going half speed. You know, it looked like she was just kind of walking her way through it. And so, yeah, somebody said it was a good dress rehearsal. I'm like, no, it wasn't. It was a terrible dress rehearsal.
It was bad, and I could see there was a couple of areas where she actually...
They didn't do stuff. They stopped. She missed one of those lifts completely.
Absolutely.
So, you know, they ended up with 8.77 for a 22, which I thought was, you know, all 7s I would have been fine with.
Right. Well, I think she's still in danger with those scores, but yeah.
Well, she's not, because she's pulled out, as we all... So, you know, I'm a little annoyed. So anyway, then we move on to Nick and Sharna doing a quick step. And my first comment was Sharna looks friggin' amazing.
That was one of my favorite quick steps on the series.
I thought he looked amazing in the individual stuff with the boys. He was
that was the thing. The Broadway-ish kind of stuff was phenomenal.
Yeah, and then I was just, when they got into hold, I was like, oh, he's a little heavy-footed in hold. Yeah. You know, and Julianne, I think it was Julianne who is right. He does punch himself. And I think I saw an interview with Sharna or something where she had said that he has had trouble. He is the tallest guy in the Backstreet Boys.
Right.
You know, he is big. He's tall. He's 6'2".
Right.
And then he spent all these years trying to shrink to look in sync with the rest of the guys. And that's what the problem he has in this ballroom is, that he has spent so many years kind of keeping himself down that she's having trouble getting him up and back and, you know, stretching and pulling that whole 6'2" frame up.
I think it's a posture issue he has in general because of that, you know, and it's a shame. He should work on it. Yeah.
And he's got a little bit of a booty.
Yeah, he does.
So, I mean, I'm not mad at him for it, but
yeah. And but I did love the choreography. Yeah, I think if it was sort of a combo dance, Broadway and quick step, it would have hit like on all the notes. You're right. I think, and they noted that
Carrie Ann pointing out that they came out of hold too early, I thought was a little ironic. Len would have hated it.
He would have hated it.
He would have absolutely been standing and yelling at Sharna and said, that's not a quick step. A quick step is in hold from the start. You can do a little bit at the beginning, a little bit at the end, but the majority of the dance needs to be in hold. That's a proper quick step, and that was not a proper quick step.
Right.
because he's done that.
It was one of my favorite dances, but not necessarily one of my favorite well-done, classically done quick steps. So
yeah, no, I love the showmanship of it. Like I said, I thought he looked great with the two troop guys and all that hat work. Whoever hit it on like that he looked like Nathan Detroit. I thought to myself, that's exactly what I felt like. It felt like Guys and Dolls to me.
Totally.
So I really enjoyed it, and they ended up with 2 9s and a 10 for a 28.
Right.
And then what did I write?
Oh,
the team up. I look like lean up, and I'm like, what the heck is lean up? It's team up Showstoppers.
Right.
The judges put the duets together. The producers put the duets together.
Right.
And they put Carlos and Alek together. And it looks like that then once they put them together, then they I don't know how they decided who got to choose where to go. If it had to do with lowest cumulative score or what it was. But because Carlos and Alek and that foursome popped up and said, we'll go on the cruise.
Right.
So they ended up going on a cruise to see the Freddie Mercury Queen We Will Rock You show that's out on the Anthem of the Seas. And they had a paso doble.
Right.
Was their dance. And my comment for the package was those boys were absolute children.
Yeah.
I mean, the way they cut that package just showed them being absolute immature children, not, realizing that they not only had to get this team dance, but they also had to be working on their individual dances. And it's just, I don't know. And the girls let them get away with way too much. They didn't crack down on them.
Yeah.
I said amazing lift. That star lift was amazing. Alek absolutely nailed that star lift. I thought Carlos was going to drop Witney again, like he did in rehearsal. But I said, but it was a lame paso.
Yeah, it wasn't a great paso. I did note that Carlos and Alek together were hot, though.
Yeah.
There was some bromance stuff going on.
I mean, they were adorable as far as that interaction back and forth, but it just annoyed me thinking about those poor girls who were trying to figure out how to get them into the studio and knowing how much work they had to do. And I'm sure they were thinking, oh God, we've got to get Alek into doing this.
Right.
The paso and I thought their duet, their 30-second duet was a little lame. There could have been so much more done with that. And I don't know if Lindsay and Witney let them choreograph that.
Yeah.
And kept it, or if they just threw up their hands and said, we just got to get through.
Yeah, maybe.
So I don't know. But they ended up with, what they ended up with?
8-8.
All 8 for a 24.
Which was the lowest of the 3.
Yeah, and I totally deserved. I mean, I was not upset with that at all. And they cut to Nick because they were still saying that Tamar wasn't there. And I thought, I made a note that Nick looks just a little bit either pissed or worried because Tamar not showing up is going to screw him.
Right.
Because I don't know what they're going to do unless they would have had one of the female pros dance with Val so that it wouldn't have hurt Nick.
Right.
As far as the scores go. But then they would have been all up like, what do we do? I don't know what to do. So he had this look on his face every time they cut to him. I was kind of like, well, that's kind of mean.
Yeah.
But anyway, the next group was the Bindi and Derek, Alexa, and Mark, which I thought was a bit of a loaded group. I mean,
it was spectacular, but look what they put there,
I know. Mark and Derek together for choreography's sake, and they gave them Chicago, or they chose Chicago. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Talk about loading this group heavy with.
Guess what? It didn't work, as we'll get to. When we go to the elimination, it didn't.
Oh yeah.
I have a little something to say about that too. But
yeah. And again, all this stress, they showed Derek stressing, in rehearsals and trying to get it, and him showing finally a little bit of impatience with, it taking so long. So, I mean, they kind of cut some negative packages on some of the people this week, but not as negative as Tamar and Alex's package 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever it was.
And it was interesting when they added up, I guess they were compounding scores, 50s for both couples.
60s for both couples, because they both ended up with perfect scores.
Scores, right.
And I said I freaking loved that number, and I have rewatched it a number of times. It's one of those numbers that I have rewatched a number of times, and I love it every time.
Yeah.
So they ended up with all
producers knew what they were doing there.
Yeah, all 10s for a perfect 30. It was fantastic. So, and what do you know? Tamar managed to miraculously make it back.
Yep.
Just in time, without having had a dress rehearsal for this extremely complicated number.
Like I said, I don't buy this for a minute.
So, and they gave him a rumba. So I'm like, well, Hey Jude could be a rumba. Right. But then it was a matter of Sharna saying that they had to incorporate, these 4 aspects from the show. And I'm kind of like, I can do a rumba to that. And I was right. There was very little rumba.
right
in this thing. And I hated the guys' costumes.
Ugh.
I hated those check pants and vests, and
Not good.
I'm
Not
sure
good.
it's from the show, but oh my god, I hated the way they looked on them.
Yeah, I wasn't thrilled with it either. Yeah, at first rumba and something like that. I don't know. It's just, I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I love the song. I love "Hey Jude," and it's Cirque du Soleil, which could have been so cool.
Yeah.
And I thought Nick looked a little awkward in the rumba part. But again, when you think about the fact they didn't get a dress rehearsal today,
expecting them to hook up a line and do something limited, like one aerial move, like have them hooked up to an aerial kind of thing. I know they're not acrobats, but I've seen them do it on this show. I thought they were going to have one of them go up and do like a somersault and come down because it was a Cirque based on the Cirque thing, but they really didn't do anything like that. Maybe
it was all about. I mean, and the ending just. I'm sure that's the way the show ends. I haven't seen the show in Vegas.
Yeah, I have. But it's fabulous, and there's lifts, and they come in from all over, and they're acrobats. So so it's amazing. It's amazing.
But they ended up with all 9s for 27, which I thought was a little generous.
Yeah, I agree.
I think there could have been some 8s in there, and I would not have had a problem with it.
That's how I feel.
So, and then she did look extremely winded, and letting her was a good thing. And now that we have found out today that she actually has pulmonary emboli or blood clots on her lungs, it's no wonder she couldn't flip and breathe.
Right.
So anyway, they ended up.
I haven't heard. Is she back next week? Is her? I guess, did they treat it? Is she out of the woods?
Oh no, you can't treat it. You have to. You normally treat it with like a heparin drip to get them to not have any more and to let them kind of settle. And
she'll probably be on
she should be in the hospital. I mean, if she's not in the hospital, she should be in the hospital.
If she's going to have to take aspirin, I would think at the minimum, or maybe go on Wayfarin or Coumadin or one of them.
She basically should not have been dancing last night. I mean, I saw somewhere that she may have left AMA from the hospital, which if they had discovered blood clots because you can see it on an x-ray or a CAT scan.
Right.
If they diagnosed her with pneumonia, then they did a chest x-ray.
Right.
Or they just said it was pneumonia when they listened to her and said, you've got, stuff in your lungs, and called it pneumonia and hadn't done the images.
Right.
Because it's, you can see clots in the lungs if they're there.
Right.
So if she left to get medical advice, I can't believe that they let her go on from a liability standpoint.
Crazy.
Because that means that no doctor had cleared her to dance.
Right.
So I'm a little annoyed about that, because if she had not made it back, they would have been the couple gone. Right. We would have had Alexa for another week. But instead, we got the high drama of putting the married couple in jeopardy together, which we all knew was going to happen. They were just waiting for it.
And it's typical. Alexa had a perfect night, and Carlos did not. And I was shocked. I really thought it was going to be Carlos tonight.
Except it was based on last week's scores. Right,
which I didn't quite. Yeah, that's true. But again, it's another case where someone does well the week they're eliminated. And, in other shows, I guess they had it sort of here in the beginning. There's always that little bit of a save or something where the judge has I know So You Think You Could Dance does that until you get to the very end. This is so far to the end, it probably wouldn't apply. But they have a system where, I think they do a lot where that's what they were doing. The audience voted.
When they had the results show on Tuesday night, you danced on Monday, had your judges' scores, then they voted overnight.
That was much better based on the previous week. That's what So You Think You Could Dance started doing when they cut the results show out. They started having an audience save, and during the last commercial break, the people left standing that were what do you call it, in jeopardy, there's a Twitter vote, and you see the meter go up, and it's a chance for the viewers, at least, to save someone who, based on the previous week's scores, would probably go home. But if they knocked your socks off that night, the audience has a percentage of that audience vote could save them. Or I think it did save them. So it's like 2 or 3 people are in the bottom, and who do you want to save tonight? And the audience can say, this was a freaking great, night for them. We're saving them. So I kind of like that, but none of these shows do it in the last 2 or 3 weeks. By this point, anyway, it's just one of the things where we've seen it before. The night that they have one of their best nights, one of their best dances, because it's based on the previous week's vote, they go home.
Yeah, I mean, I hated the fact that they announced that Alexa and Carlos were in jeopardy and then went to commercial.
Right.
I was just kind of like, oh,
I know.
it's just downright it's manipulative, it's cruel, it's exploitative.
Right.
And then showing what they were talking about in the commercial when they came back, I just thought that was a little low.
So annoying.
You know, and it was absolutely Carlos, you know, knows how the show works, because you heard him say, this is what they wanted, let them have it. And then I don't know what he said because they bleeped him. They didn't bleep him, they you know, they cut him. They cut the sound.
Yeah.
So he evidently said something that the producers didn't want the audience to hear.
You're going to do that, you take the chance. You know, it's live TV, so.
So I was just kind of like, ugh. And I mean, I knew she was going to go because she'd been in the bottom.
Right. Last week I would have predicted. I guess it was a shame. She had a good night. Tamar skated through with her drama. Carlos didn't have his best night. Again, he's had a couple of weird, you know, he's had some good weeks recently. But anyway, so she ended up going, and I just wonder if Tamar is going to get audience sympathy for the voting last night. And I thought
I heard she had said she could not continue. She will not be cleared to dance.
I can't believe she will be.
No, she will not be. Yeah. No doctor would clear her to dance with this issue.
Right.
And not, you know, be in fear for his license, because
she'll be the default elimination next week.
I don't know. She won't have to dance next week. If there's not an elimination next week, are they going to waste a week with no elimination? But then they're going to want 4 couples. Do what?
Well, would they? But if she can't dance, would they waive her and keep her on? Would they just automatically?
Oh yeah, she can't dance. I mean, she's eliminated.
Oh, she is eliminated.
Yeah, if she has pulled out, she cannot dance. And like I said,
did they announce this morning that she pulled out, or have we not heard?
I thought I saw somebody say that she announced via her Instagram.
Oh.
I haven't been there to look. I just saw it like right before we started recording, so I need to go look at it. But if she truly has pulmonary embolus, blood clots in the lungs, no doctor that I can imagine would clear her to dance for fear of his license. Because if something happened, you put those people in the hospital on a heparin drip. Sorry guys, I'm a nurse who's taking care of people with pulmonary emboli.
I'm looking at ET. She pulled out.
Yeah. I was.
So yeah, I don't know what they'll do next week. Do they just go? Are they off by a number? You know,
they should have reduced down to 4 next week to have 4 in the final, because the finale week is 2 nights.
It'll be 3.
So it just kind of depends if they go down to 3 before the final and don't eliminate anybody. So we'll
not
see.
a nightmare producing thing. You could totally rework how it goes. A lot of shows, elimination shows, have final 3s. Some have final 4s. Some, like Idol, goes right down to 2. They can.
Well, this used to be a final 3. Remember when it used to be a final 3, the 3 in the finale, and then they had 1 year when somebody was so good that they didn't want to see them go, that they said we're going to make it a 4-person finale. And since then, it's been a 4-person finale for the first set of dances, and then they eliminate somebody.
Right. They're simply going to reconfigure it. And the question is, are they going to eliminate someone next week and make it 2 people in the finale? Or are they going to do one of those things where they'll all advance, but in the first hour, the second runner-up will go, and then at the end, it's going to be between 2. I don't know how they're going to do that.
Yeah, well, like I said, finale week is a 2-night.
Right.
So you have your dance night, where normally everybody would dance.
Right.
The next day the Tuesday they'd come back, they would eliminate 1 couple, and there would be 3, I think is the way it used to be, the way it is. And the 3 there are 3 freestyles. So everybody would prepare a freestyle. Right.
So how many?
But there would be 1 person who wouldn't get to do it.
8, 7. How many couples are left? Wait a minute.
4. We have 4 left. This is our semi.
Right, we had 6 going. Right, we had 6 going into last night, but we just lost Alexa and we just lost Tamar. So we have 4. Okay, so I think someone will go home next week, and I think the 2-part finale the following week. Is that the following week?
Yeah, it's Thanksgiving week.
Yeah, it's going to be 3 people, and I think 1 couple will go home in the beginning. And
we'll see. I can't imagine them not keeping 4 couples that last week, just from a ratings perspective.
Right.
Because that would keep Bindi and Derek, Sharna and Nick, Carlos and Witney, and Alek and Lindsay.
Right.
So
and then they could eliminate, early on in the finale, and then have 2 left standing at the end.
Yeah, but it would next week would just be they could say we're going to do cumulative scores over 2 weeks, which is maybe the way I see them going. Nobody's going to be eliminated this week. Everybody's going on to the finale.
Right.
But we will eliminate. These scores will carry over. So this week is going to count towards you next week.
That seems logical. If Tamar hadn't been able to quit, they probably would have done 1 elimination and advanced 4. But now that they have 4, I agree with you. I think it's going to be a cumulative, not elimination.
Oh.
Well, we'll see.
They may announce this week how they're going to do it at some point. I'm sure they're still scrambling, going, well, crap. You know, she just stayed in the hospital.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the lawyers are breathing a huge sigh of relief that nothing happened to her.
Right.
Because if she already had more than 1 clot, there's always a chance that there's others floating around in there that could have actually hit her again or gone, you know, straight and been a cardiac emboli, which kills you.
Right.
So that's why I'm saying no doctor, if she'd been diagnosed with pulmonary emboli, would have cleared her to come and dance.
No. Bad enough to
She would have been put in a hospital on some kind of thinner, like I said, normally it's like a heparin drip.
Right. I've been on a heparin drip when I had surgery because I, you know, to prevent clotting where I had
clot afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're on a heparin drip that's titrated to see what your blood, you know, how thin your blood is. It's to prevent additional clots from happening.
Right.
So yeah, like I said, if she had been truly diagnosed last night from the hospital, then she didn't tell anybody what her diagnosis was.
Right.
And that's irresponsible for her because she, you know, it's a very, very serious condition and she could have died.
Right.
So
this isn't a personal decision. I want to still continue my plans to go rock climbing with a friend, or, you know, this involves network television and, you know,
and a child. She has a child.
Right.
You know, a husband and a child. So
that's the ethical issue and the moral issue. But the legal issue is she's under contract with the show, and she has an obligation to be honest about that. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I said, I can't believe that they didn't see that last night and she's diagnosed this morning.
Right. Look, I respect someone who has a drive to win and a drive not to quit and a drive to continue. But doing what she did, if that's what happened, and she just defied them and wasn't forthright, it just totally, my respect level isn't, you know, it just diminishes it more.
It's irresponsible.
Yeah. And on that note, I've got to go make some money.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, we'll be back next week. And hopefully next week we can kind of do it Monday or Tuesday and get it up faster, and we'll see who's going to be in the finale. So thanks for joining us. And
don't forget to hit dclanders.com. Some good stuff there in my sound and screen. We've got
dclanders.com/sound and screen is Scott's own blog. There's some great reviews on there, some great indie artists. Matt Nathanson, he saw and reviewed. Andrew Ripp, he's reviewed.
Some movie stuff. I saw a screening of Street Steve Jobs last night, and Aaron Sorkin and Danny Boyle, the director, were both there for Q&A. So maybe if I have some time later, crazy week, but I'll jot down some insights. And I did not hate the movie. It's getting a lot of hate. I've got a tolerance level for Aaron Sorkin to a point, but yeah, the river dance of dialogue can get to you, and it's very Aaron Sorkin. But my insights on that hopefully coming up maybe later today or tomorrow morning.
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
Okay, cool.
See you all later. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.